I just got back from the Backrooms. Somehow survived, don't know how. Definitely didn't take a stool with me. As the title of the video suggests, I wanted to discuss with you whether or not you think the Backrooms movie is scary. Because me personally thought it was pretty effective. I thought it definitely had some merit to it as far as the unsettling, the unnerving goes. Definitely won't be getting into any spoilers with this video. I'll try to remain as spoiler free as possible. Hopefully you get to experience it soon. I think the film is at its strongest when it's not necessarily trying to scare you. It's just the vibe of the Backrooms themselves. You know, the long shots we get of the hallways. It's the parts of the film that allow your mind to fill in the gaps, basically. It's the shots of the film that show you the whole room or a whole hallway, and you get to fill in the blanks. You get to map out the rooms and be like, oh, is that a shadow moving I see back there? Those are the moments that I feel like the film is at its best, because that's the way that I like horror, in that it's showing you basically its cards on the table and letting you yourself decipher, is everything right with this picture? Or is something amiss? That's something that I find very effective, and it goes to great lengths in this film. Personally, I'm not a big fan of the jump scares, to which there are a few in this film. Sometimes it's, in your face. That kind of stuff isn't really effective for me most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. Things of that nature happen in horror films. It mostly just gets an eye roll out of me because it feels like a cheap shot. Jump scares are to horror what fart jokes are to comedy. It's a very low-hanging fruit. And to me, it's not something I necessarily vibe with. I like to genuinely kind of be shaken in my boots. I like to think this film is very effective at that. I really like where this film went. I like the story it was telling. I've heard from many people, and again, I'm not going to get into spoilers, but I've heard from many people that there's not a lot of meat on the bones as far as story goes. Personally, I think that I was pleasantly surprised with the story that we went with here. There is more to it than I think I was led on to believe initially. I walked out of the theater pretty glad that I went to see it. That's what I'll say. And I'm by no means a Backrooms expert. I know absolutely nothing about the Backrooms. I've played a few of the games on Steam, and that is my extent of Backrooms knowledge. I don't know anything about the lore, the creepypasta, anything about it. So I was going into this relatively blind, just sort of judging this film as its own sort of entity. And like I said, I think the film was pretty effective. I cared for the characters. It's letting you decipher in a lot of these shots, like, is everything right, or is something wrong with this picture? And that's the stuff that I really like. I definitely want to see a follow-up, more from Kane Parson, another film, possibly a sequel or a prequel to this film. I think that would be very entertaining. But yeah, I really enjoyed the film overall. If you have not seen it, I definitely recommend doing so, especially if you're more akin to kind of, I wouldn't necessarily say a slow burn, but it does kind of like ride that line. I'm interested to hear your take on it. Maybe you know more about the Backrooms than I do. If you're going to this like I was, almost completely blind, I think you'll have a good time. I think it sets up its premise. It sets up the characters very well. I think it was very effective as a horror film. I hope you enjoyed my Backrooms t-shirt. Got it straight from the Backrooms. Ripped it straight off the walls. All right, thanks for sticking with me. Let me know what you think down in the comments.